Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can configure the fonts by default. So you have a new set of default fonts for Google Docs. So this is really helpful if you know that there are certain fonts that you want to be using pretty often. From an accessibility standpoint, there are fonts that are more friendly for reading on a screen versus print. So if you'd like to configure your fonts onto Google Docs to where you're always using font styles that are more accessible for screen reading, you can easily do that now. I will say that most of the time Google Docs does give you a font style that is pretty accessible, but if you wanted to change it to maybe one that you prefer that's also accessible, there are a whole collection of them. Arial's one that's really good for reading on a screen. So are some of the Lexend Deca fonts that Google typically uses in a lot of their advertising and on their web spaces. But also Verdana is another one that you can use as well. Times New Roman is a great font, but not so much for reading on a screen. That's a great one for if you're reading something that's printed. So if I wanted to configure my fonts, I can kind of go through and do this family by family of different font types and styles in a document. Always make sure that whenever you're using different fonts or you're even wanting to emphasize different points on a document, that you're using these different options here for titles, subtitles, headings, so on and so forth, instead of just increasing the size of the fonts or just bolding things along the way. I'm guilty of doing that every now and then, but technically these help make sure that whenever someone's even using a screen reading tool, that shows them the emphasis if they can't see it on the screen. So make sure you use these tools, and you can also go through and apply any of your font style settings to these different options as well. So let's say I want to configure my normal text to be something different. So I'm just going to type out my little phrase here. All right. So I have this set up here. I typed out my little sentence that I'm in a normal text style. So what I'm going to do is, let's say that I want to change this. All right. So I have all of these different options here. Arial's okay, but there's also some other great ones on here. Helvetica is a great one for reading on a screen. So are the Lexend Deca style of families. So I'm just going to go with this one, and we're going to go with normal. All right. So I have that selected. And if I want that to be my now default font, whenever I open a Google Doc and I'm making a resource for my students, I'm going to come over here to where it says normal text. I'm in normal text. And then right below that, I'm going to go to options and then save as my default styles. All right. And it saved it. So now whenever I'm typing on a Google Doc and I'm in this normal font category here, it's going to use Lexend Deca, and even this size of font is my typical font style whenever I'm writing a document. So it's a great way to just set up your documents to be accessible no matter when and where you're going to be creating them.